Hello everybody, hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm Tim Eister, and it's another beautiful day here in Oxbourg. In today's episode, we're going to be featuring something very unique. I never thought I would be making an episode like this, but here we are. With the recent launch of the new Netherlands region pack, we now have the ability to create our very own custom cemeteries. So yes, this episode will be completely featuring a cemetery. But not just any boring old cemetery, this is going to be the cemetery of all cemeteries. It's going to be really, really exciting. But before I start diving in here, I will highly suggest that you go check out my recent review on the Netherlands region pack because it contains a bunch of really awesome buildings that don't necessarily need to fit into a Netherlands type build. You can actually fit in a lot of these buildings included in this pack in even a North American style city. So even if you have no intention of ever building a Netherlands inspired city, I would highly recommend this pack just for the cemetery feature alone. All right, so let's jump into it. But before we get anything done, we have a little bit of prep work to do because the cemetery will occupy this space here, around here. But to do that, we're going to have to, first of all, remove this forestry industry, which appears to have extracted most of the trees here anyways. Plus, the city is expanding, so sooner or later, it was going to have to go. But yeah, we're going to have to clear up some of this land. We're going to have to build out some of the roads surrounding the cemetery. And I'm going to start by building up some of the roads over here. So I'm first going to pause the game. I'm going to remove these two water pumping stations, and we're going to demolish this entire road and completely relocate it. But first, actually, let's work on this real quick. I've actually been wanting to do this for quite some time. This 4-lane road is much more critical than this little 2-lane road leading into the city. And with the city growing at its rapid pace, this was eventually going to lead to all kinds of bottlenecks in the future anyways. So we're just going to take the 10 seconds to upgrade it. And that will make a nice little overpass. And then from here, we can then squeeze in this road just like this. And I think I'll just have to scooch this post office over just a little bit like this. Perfect. Fits in perfectly with this bridge. And we don't have any room for any buildings here, but that's okay. We'll just plant a few trees. And there we go. All right, so that's done. And then what I really want to do here is this main avenue here. This is pretty much the city's main street. What is this? Primrose Street. This leads right into the downtown core, basically splitting the entire city in two. So this road is going to continue to service the eastern side of the island. So we're going to do a little bit of landscaping here and level this out because I want this road to head off into this direction. And we're going to attempt to build an overpass above this railroad track. Actually, I might have to bring this a bit farther out this way because it appears the track is going down a very slight hill. Perfect. My initial plan was to build this road into an overpass right over here, but I kind of want to avoid having too many squiggles, but that's okay. We can have another bridge kind of off into this direction, a smaller bridge that won't occupy as much space. All right, so that's complete. And what I want to do now, so we used to have this little dirt road leading in this direction. I want to have that same road, more or less, but I just wanted to have it a bit more near the water. And not quite as curvy, because this city is partially based off of New York, you know, Brooklyn and Queens, which kind of have like these grid patterned neighborhoods all over the city. All right, and after a little bit of road work, we've got this funky shaped lot which will house the cemetery. So effectively we're going to replace this cemetery over here. This one's gonna get the boot. However, having removed these 2 water pumps, the entire city is without water right now. So we're gonna wanna replop those before we go any further. I almost forgot to do so. So we're gonna build one, I suppose right here, right by the water would be a pretty decent location. And I had 2 of them, but were they even upgraded? They might not have been upgraded, so maybe we can just get away with 1. So let's do a groundwater pumping station, and then filtration greatly reduces the amount of pollutants in the intake water. I don't think we really have any water pollution in this area. Yeah, we have none at all, so that upgrade's not really worth it. So let's just hit play here. I'm just kind of curious if that's going to take care of all of our issues, and no, it has not. So we're just going to go ahead and plop a second pump, as that's pretty much the only option we have, unless, actually, hang on here. So this water pump can output up to 75,000 cubic meters a month, whereas a water pumping station, can output 100,000. And you know what? Perhaps we could just, you know, make this kind of a part of this water pumping station. So with having these 2 buildings adjacent to each other, it kind of gives the impression that they're part of the same institution. There, so let's do this and then move this ever so slightly. Oh, but that's gonna break it. But that's okay, we can fix it by doing this. Wonderful, and that hooks it directly up to the city, I believe. Yep, so we're good to go. Let's hit play, and then all is good in the hood. See, look at that, guys. We're fixing problems at every opportunity. Let's just see what kind of upgrades we can build. An extra pump, so this will give us, oh my god, another 50,000 cubic meters a month. You know what? Let's just go for it, because the city is not shrinking, and sooner or later we were going to need another pump anyways, so this is going to take us well into the green zone. Oh yeah, look at that. Now, my only concern is hopefully this is not going to start, like, ingesting so much water that it's going to, like, ruin this entire river, but I don't think so. The pumps don't exactly function the same way as they did in City Skylines 1, so I think we're okay. All right, so let's get into it. Let's finally start plopping away here and getting our cemetery going. So let me just check the terrain here real quick to make sure everything is nice and smooth, because I imagine some of these cemetery upgrades are quite large and they might not play nice with a very aggressive terrain. But overall, everything looks pretty flat, so let's get into it. Actually, you know what I could do is I could build this kind of in the middle of this entire thing, and then that'll make it look a little bit more grand. How about we do that? So we'll have a one-way coming off in this direction, like so. Oh my god, look at all the tree stumps. This is where our logging industry was. That's kind of funny that the tree stumps remain. There, so let's start with this, and then I don't really want street side parking the whole way. Maybe we can have just a little section here, a little drop-off zone, and then we'll go ahead and plop our main central building. And actually, you know what? We should provide some parking to the fine folks that are going to come visit this cemetery. Maybe we'll do a modest parking lot, or will a medium parking lot fit in here? It'll fit, but it's not symmetrical. It kind of bothers me. Oh, but the single row will fit. There we go. That's all right. We don't really need a ton of parking anyway. Okay, now is where things start to get a little complicated. So we plopped our main building. And actually, with this building being plopped, I can remove this cemetery. And then all of the deceased will be transferred over to this one, which has a ton of capacity. It's kind of funny, however, that we're able to just remove a cemetery with a ton of bodies in there. You know, in City Skylines 1, we actually had to empty our cemeteries before we were able to relocate them. But anyways, small details. All right, so let's get into some of our upgrades. We have a whole bunch of them. First of which is a crematorium. And oh, this might look kind of cool right here, actually. I actually like this. This is kind of like a weird coincidence, but having the crematorium like directly adjacent to the road. Oh crap, but it kind of screws up with these paths here. Hang on. Is this fixable? It is indeed. Beautiful. I kind of like that it just adds this little diagonal path here. That's great. Okay, next we have a hearse garage. We might as well. Because the extra cost is not that much. We're still making like a really healthy amount of income, so I'm not really concerned with the cost of anything at this moment. So we're gonna have a little hearse garage off to the side here. And on top of that, let's maybe do an auditorium as well, which is road accessible. So I'll plop it just along the side like this. So this already looks quite symmetrical, but that's gonna look really cool. And what do we do now? So I think I'm gonna plop all of the main puzzle pieces, and then we'll connect everything up with streets as we go along. So let's do some of the larger ones. We have the House of Remembrance. I actually think that plopping this alongside the main road might be pretty cool. So if I build this like right here. Oh, nice. I actually like that it adds a crosswalk automatically. And then to provide parking. Oh, this won't quite fit. So instead, I think I'll just add a little parking spot like this. Or actually, hang on. Maybe the modest parking lot will fit if we just scooch it off to the side, just like this. And then if we get into the little nitty-gritty details, we can connect this up. I'm not sure how well this is going to work. Oh, yes. Wonderful. All right, so now this parking lot is a part of this building, which we can only plot one of, the House of Remembrance. Next, we have a large pond. The large pond, I suppose, could probably go somewhere over here. So to keep everything as straight as possible, what I'll do is build out a little path like this, and then we'll do a large pond just like this. And then this pond is kind of like a T-junction. So then we can just continue this path along just like this, connecting up to our main road. And before I get too carried away here, before I start plopping paths left and right, we want to make sure that we take advantage of all of these intersections. So we have a Columbarium variant A, which is kind of like a four-way junction like this. Now trying to line this up with all these paths without having any paths plop down is going to be kind of a challenge, but we'll figure it out. So now for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to jump into time-lapse mode as I get all my paths plopped down. And with this being kind of an odd-shaped lot that we're building our cemetery in, it's not going to be as simple as building a really easy grid. I kind of wanted this cemetery to have different sections and all the tombstones oriented in different ways. A lot of cemeteries in New York, in Brooklyn, and in Queens are, first of all, they're huge, and a lot of them have these oblique, weird, odd shapes to them, and that's kind of what I'm going for here in Oxbourg. So that leads to a little bit more work having to go in the cemetery. We're gonna have to build all these weird kind of paths everywhere, but I'm gonna keep it relatively simple. Now if you look at satellite imagery of New York, you can see that a lot of these bigger cemeteries almost resemble parks. You know, they have like these nice forested trails that go off into all kinds of different directions. That's not really what we're going to do in this case. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. We're just going to have a bunch of straight paths going all over the cemetery, and then we're going to get everything detailed up in just a few moments here. But for now, I'm focusing mostly on the main structures first, all of the bigger buildings. Wherever there's T intersections, I'll be plopping all sorts of puzzle pieces together to detail this whole build as much as possible. And now begins the incredibly arduous task of manually plopping all of these tombstones one by one. Now luckily, these tombstone presets come in packs of like 16 or 12 little tombstones, so if you have a small cemetery, this really isn't that much of a big deal, but the bigger your cemetery is, the more of these you're gonna have to plop, and unfortunately, there is no bigger sizes of tombstone plots that are included in this pack. So in this case, we're dealing with a pretty large cemetery, so it's going to take quite a while to plop all of these down. And unfortunately, you can't use any tools to copy and paste these assets. They simply don't work. I think it's because they are an upgrade to the default cemetery, so it just doesn't work. But anyways, just, I don't know, maybe took a half an hour or so to plop all of these little tombstone packs all over the cemetery, and it wasn't too bad. But what's fun with these being kind of small, that means that you can create various shapes quite easily. So in this case here, we have a smooth, sloped curve going on in the cemetery, and with very little work, you can just simply plop them kind of following the contour of that curve. So it's pretty easy to get really nice looking cemeteries with these little packs. Now unfortunately, there's only one variant and they're exactly identical, so you're going to notice a pattern within the cemetery, like all of these little lots will look exactly identical, but if you zoom out a little bit, you can't really see it that much, so it's really not that much of a big deal. At one point during the construction of this cemetery, I started kind of rotating them and putting them in different orientations so you wouldn't see the pattern as much, but it's still there. You can still kind of notice it, so I just kind of gave up on it at one point and just decided to go with it. And also, the fun part about all of these little plots of tombstones, they are functional. They actually contribute to the overall capacity of your cemetery. So by the end of this video, you'll see that this cemetery is an absolute behemoth containing tens of thousands of plots. So realistically, this probably could be the only cemetery we're ever going to need in the city. Now, I suppose if you really don't feel like plopping all these lots manually, you could use props. So using various tools like the prop line tool and find it, you can simply find a collection of tombstone props and then line them up very easily using those two tools. And I've done that before in some custom cemeteries that I've built in the past, but that way they're not functional. So I'd rather just do it this way, take the time to actually build a fully functional cemetery, and it's gonna look pretty as well. And a lot of plopping later, this is what we've got. We've got a ton of tombstones all over, looking really, really beautiful. I don't know if it's just the sheer number of tombstones that I've plopped down, but my game appears to be lagging quite a bit when I'm looking at the cemetery. But anyways, that's not a big deal. What I'm gonna work on now for just a few moments is we're gonna detail this whole build up. So I'm just gonna add a bunch of props everywhere, such as, you know, some little gazebos here and there where people can come visit their loved ones and maybe just hang out. I suppose there's already quite a bit of details within these little buildings themselves, but we can maybe plop down some little benches where people can go and have a little rest. There, and I think that should do it. And then trees. We already have a few trees that are included with some of these upgrades, some of these burial sites. But these are going to take quite a bit of time to grow. So in the essence of time, what we're going to do here is we're just going to plop some big old oak trees, because I find that oak trees just look the best in this game. You know, if you really want to get a sense that this is an old cemetery that's been here for hundreds of years, plop a whole bunch of oak trees and it'll look just amazing. You know, we'll get some nice oak trees kind of in all corners of this cemetery, wherever we can find some gaps. Along the roads as well. And then of course on top of that we can do other types of trees as well. Personally, I love the alder trees included in the European pack. They look awful similar to the oak trees, but they're just different enough where it creates a little bit of variance. And if you want to be just a little bit more artsy, having multiple types of trees just helps a lot. But yeah, this is gonna look absolutely amazing when it's all done. There, so I think that's already a pretty good start. We can go ahead now and maybe plop a small number of smaller trees just in some of the smaller gaps that we have. I really like these hickory trees as well, plopped kind of in between everything else. Just creates a little bit more variance with this lighter shade of green. And then I suppose we can just go and plop like a whole bunch of different styles of trees along these train tracks. And actually, before I plop too many trees, before this gets difficult, yeah, so we have these cemetery walls, and these are props that you can build that match whatever's in front of the main building here. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna use Find It, and then we're gonna go into our fences, and then we're gonna search for our cemetery pieces, although I suppose we can just go through the parks. And then we're going to use the line tool, wall to wall mode, and then that's going to allow us to build our fence. So I'm not going to be too picky here. Just going to build a big old fence. And I suppose we can switch it up as well if we want this to be a bit fancier. We can go with these nice bollards where you can actually see inside of the cemetery. And then off to this side, I'm just going to do a straight wall, because this is just leading up to a train track, so no use making this all beautiful. And then we'll switch back to this type of fence. There, beautiful. And with that fence being plopped down, then that'll allow me to plop some more trees. I just wanted to get that out of the way before I went too crazy with the trees, and then it makes it like really hard to plop fences and stuff in between the trees. And I think that should do it. That looks absolutely amazing. The best cemetery I've ever built, by far. And it was so easy with the new Netherlands region pack. Now, there's not only the cemetery to be excited about in this region pack, we must also explore what we can do with all of the other service buildings that are available. Now, there's a whole bunch of zonable buildings. There's only residential, as I outlined in my review of this region pack. We're not going to make use of very much of those buildings in this series. However, I really, really love some of these medical buildings. Even some of the schools look really cool, such as the high school, for example. And how are we doing in high school capacity? We're actually getting pretty low, so now is probably a good opportunity to plop one of these. And what better location than in our new little district? So let's see, where do we maybe want to plop this high school? I suppose just along the main road here, Crosswind Street. And look at this. You know, this looks very Netherlands-esque, but it can also work in any type of city. It fits perfectly within any typical neighborhood in Oxbourg. And wow, look how appropriate this is. There's a whole load of people waiting for hearses, but they can slowly make their way into our new cemetery. Which actually, you know what? We should explore how many... Oh yeah, look at this. Okay. We have room for over 12,000 deceased, and we can process up to 300 bodies a month, which is actually quite good. And we got 20 vehicles out in the field collecting people, collecting the deceased. And then we also get kind of a running list of all the buildings that we've plopped, all of the upgrades. Oh my god, this is a crazy list. And then, well, there's recolor down here. I'm not even sure if any of these buildings are recolorable, but we won't touch that for now. But anyways, look at that. So all of these upgrades that we've plopped down total up to plus 42 indoor recreation, which is a little odd. You know, typically people don't go to a cemetery to have fun. Most people, at least. And plus 11 well-being within 2.5 kilometers. So there's huge upgrades to be had by building a big cemetery in your city that will make your game lag a little bit. So it'll be up to you if that's worth it or not. But anyways, yeah, so with the cemetery being complete, what we must do at this point is develop the neighborhoods around the cemetery. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy just yet, but we have the high school here, and just like I did in my review of this pack, we've covered all of the upgrades. I know I'm going to make use of all of the capacity we could ever use eventually, so we're just going to go ahead and build that upgrade. And let's get a little neighborhood going. A little neighborhood surrounding the cemetery. There, well, it appears I don't quite have the demand to develop an entire neighborhood. However, I do have some high density demand, which we can use to build some, let me find my zones here, some low rent housing in the Netherlands style. And these assets actually look really, really cool. So we're just gonna plop a couple buildings in the back here. And the interesting thing about these buildings is they're never deeper than 2 tiles. So they're quite small to begin with, but they're quite versatile as well. You can pretty much fit these buildings anywhere. And that is going to leave us with a ton of room for some paid parking. Or, well, not paid, but I suppose free parking for the tenants who are going to live within these buildings. Oh, looks like we're dealing with a little bit of terrain issues here. Let me fix up my streets. There we go. Perfect. So now I'm just going to give this little community a few minutes to grow as we zone everything in, and then we'll continue in just a moment. And well, since we've got our little community started here and our focus on the new Netherlands pack, let's explore some more assets. So we've already plopped down the high school. Now let's take a look at the elementary school. So the elementary school, I am going to, I think I'm just going to plop in behind here, because typically elementary schools tend to be built not on like super busy main roads. So if we just go and plop it right here, it almost looks like kind of an old factory or something. And we have 2 upgrades to this building. First, we have an adventure playground, which just tacks on to the front here, so we can see all this chalk. And I already reviewed all of this in the in my review of this pack, so I'm not going to bore you guys too much with that. But then secondly, we have an extension wing. And for this extension wing, I'm just going to build a little one-way alley right up to here. And then we're going to make kind of like a little makeshift drop-off zone just like this. And then we'll go ahead and plop this upgrade directly adjacent to the main campus. So then all these parks and stuff are kind of nestled in behind here. But then we're left with a big old empty zone. Perhaps, can we maybe fit like maybe a soccer field? No, a soccer field's quite large. However, we could probably build it off to the side here. Oh my god, that was close. I should have checked if it was in the river or not. But that's fine. And then along with the soccer field, I think maybe we can fit like a little basketball court or something. There, so we'll make all of this part of the school campus. So let's just remove some of these trees. And in their place, we'll build... Do we have any parking? Yeah, we don't even have any parking for this school. So let's get some parking in here. With this being an American-style city, of course we need parking. So I can simply draw a road straight through here, and then we'll do... oh yeah, this should fit behind here, just like that. And then maybe I can do this. Wonderful. And then, you know what? This is just me being a little creative here, but what if I build some paths that are kind of going in behind, just like this? I'm just trying to blend all of this in together and make this look like one cohesive campus. Uh-oh. This isn't really going to plan here. Let's see if I can make this work. Yeah, I think it's just the school property that's not happy with. If I do this, and then, oh yeah, there we go. That works. The court doesn't seem to care about paths being on it, but there we go. Got ourselves a nice elementary school. I'm gonna get rid of some of these trees. This map has a lot of these kind of pine trees, I think. I'm not even sure what they are. What are these trees? Yeah, they are pine trees. There's so many of them on this map. It's crazy. And I don't particularly like them that much. So we're going to get rid of those. And instead, we're going to load this up here with a bunch of oak trees. Some old oak trees, because this is so close to downtown. This can easily come off as an old historic part of town. But there you have it. There's our beautiful elementary school kind of tucked away in behind here, behind the cemetery. Everything is being slowly pieced together. And on top of that, there's a whole bunch of other Netherlands style buildings that we can plop down, such as, let's see here, we have hospitals, which we really don't need at this point. Our healthcare availability is off the charts right now, so I'm not even gonna bother plopping. I suppose maybe even like a small clinic. Maybe we can do a small clinic. Just to save people from having to drive across town. So we'll do that at least. And apart from that, there is the police station. Or fire station, rather. Actually, we should build a fire station. Fire stations are very important to have. We don't really have one anywhere near this area, so we'll go ahead and plop it, I guess, right here, right in behind of all of these buildings. Looks very much like a fire hall. And as far as upgrades, I don't really think we need anything in particular. I don't even think we need the extra vehicles. We have 5 fire engines. I think we're okay. Yeah, wow, I'm actually really liking this little community that we're building. We got to give it a name, but maybe not this episode, because what I'm going to work on after this episode is we're going to fill in all of this blank space. What I really wanted to do just for now was just to build a little town around the cemetery so we can get some epic screenshots of everything afterwards. But anyways, after this, what do we got? We have a police station. We don't have a small police station though, so I think I'll just... actually, you know what? We could probably use another police station over here. We don't have one quite near this area, so if I plop one right about here along this main road, I think that actually looks quite nice. And why I plopped it there was simply so we can continue this road off into this direction. But first, let's just create a nice smooth slope. Just like this. And we'll blend all of this together. Beautiful. And look at that. That is wonderful. And now what do I build alongside this road, in between this road and these train tracks? Why not some low rent housing? You know, we have plenty of high density residential demand. So let's go ahead here and build some low rent housing. Might as well build some over here as well. Why not the whole length of this road? And oh my god, I think we've used up all my demand already. But that's totally fine. It'll bounce back. And then down here, what do we build? I guess just some generic commercial. And check this out. All of these low rent housing buildings, they look absolutely grungy and I love it. And then in the back here, just for an added bit of realism, I just plopped a big slab of pavement just so cars can kind of go in behind and park, because there's no provided parking for these buildings otherwise. And certainly these types of buildings would not have luxurious underground parking. And then I went ahead and added some actual parking lots for these buildings over here. So that pretty much does it for this little village here that we got going on today. However, there's one last building that I would like to plop just over here at the corner just to finish things up. And that is our brand new historical post office. So how appropriate is this, with this being a historical district? And we're gonna go ahead and plop this right around here. And it's too bad that we're kind of clipping into the road here. So I think I'm just going to actually properly move this building over by 1, just like this. So as you're driving down this road, you'll be able to clearly see this beautiful historical building. And then what do we do here? We have a bit of empty space. Perhaps we can go ahead and build a little park, shall we? Let's do that. There, so then this road will continue off into this direction somewhere. Anyway, we'll figure that out next episode. So let's go ahead and clear some trees out of here. You know what? I'm not going to be too fussy. Let's just build a little parkette for functionality-wise, so we actually get some park benefits. And then I'm just going to go ahead and lay down some paths, kind of make this into a generic little park. And there we go, guys. That is it. What a beautiful little town we've got going on here in the eastern part of the city. Still very historical, still very close to downtown. This level of historicalness, I suppose, like all these little row houses and this typical Brooklyn theme that we've got going on here, is mostly going to encompass most of the northern part of this island. So like this whole section here and onto the mainland, this is all going to be in the same style. It's not until we start to get farther and farther away from downtown that we're going to start to see some more single family homes and more of the suburban variety. But that's pretty much going to do it for this episode, guys. It's kind of funny because my game appears to run just fine when I'm zoomed out from quite a distance, and then as I zoom in and all these tombstones begin to appear, that's when things get a little choppier. But I'm sure that's just because I plopped so many of these buildings, of these little tombstones. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Make sure you stay tuned for just another minute here, because we're going to get into some epic cinematics of what we've built here today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you're going to enjoy the Netherlands region pack as much as I've been having fun with it. Shout out to the 4 creators who made this region pack possible: Feinbold, Jez, Grunny, and Revo. Hats off to you guys. So with that, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to drop a like. Also, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this new cemetery and what you think of the Netherlands pack overall. And certainly don't forget to subscribe to the channel also to get notified of future uploads. And on top of that, if you would like to support the channel even further, consider becoming a patron or a YouTube member. And with that, I will catch you in the next episode, everybody. And until then, take care.